Wake up, Chloe. Vanessa graduated from Harvard. She was born to lead Caldwell. And you're just an embarrassment that needs to be hidden. My father's words echoed through the mahogany boardroom, stripping me bare in front of the very empire my grandmother built. For 28 years, I was the slow one, the dyslexic failure, while my sister was the golden child destined for the throne. They thought firing me would finally erase their shame. But what Robert Caldwell didn't know was that the embarrassment, sitting across from him, was holding a $47 million secret. Grandma Martha hadn't just left me a goodbye letter. She left me the nuclear codes to the company, and I was finally ready to press the button. My name is Chloe Caldwell, and for 20 years I was the family secret. The Caldwells were Manhattan royalty, the kind of old money dynasty that had their names chiseled into hospital wings and stamped onto museum plaques. My father, Robert Caldwell, ruled Caldwell Properties with an iron fist, presiding over a real estate empire my grandmother Martha had built from scratch in a dusty Brooklyn office back in 1965. By 2024, the company was valued at nearly $100 million. But while the family business soared, I was sinking. I was diagnosed with dyslexia at 7. To me, a page of text wasn't just information, it was a battlefield. The letters would swim, spin, and rearrange themselves, turning simple sentences into impossible puzzles that took me 3 times longer to solve than other kids. In a supportive home, this would have been a challenge to overcome. In the Caldwell household, it was treated as a moral failing. My parents didn't offer help, they offered shame. The contrast between me and my sister was brutal. Vanessa was the golden child collecting Ivy League degrees and inheritance promises like they were trading cards. I remember being 12 years old, sitting at our mahogany dining table, watching my parents lavish resources on her. They hired Juilliard violin instructors, French immersion experts, and SAT prep coaches who charged $500 an hour. But when I finally worked up the courage to ask my mother Catherine for a reading specialist, she didn't even look up from her plate. She just sighed, a cold, sharp sound that cut deeper than screaming. "Chloe," she said, her voice dripping with fatigue, "we've already wasted so much money on specialists. At some point, we have to accept that some children just aren't built for success." I was 12. I believed her, so I learned to make myself invisible. I survived by developing my own systems, visual notes, complex diagrams, and flowcharts that helped me process the world in ways traditional reading couldn't. But my real education didn't happen in a classroom. It happened on Sundays. Every week, I would escape the suffocating pressure of my parents' Upper East Side townhouse and take the train to Grandma Martha's apartment. She was the only one who didn't look at me with pity. She saw something else. She would spread out decades-old commercial contracts on her coffee table, dense, terrifying legal documents. But she didn't make me read them word for word. "Don't fight the letters, Chloe," she would say, her weathered hand resting over mine. "Look at the structure. See the flow of leverage, the connections between the parties." She taught me to read contracts, not like a lawyer looking for loopholes, but like an architect reading a blueprint. "Your father reads to exploit," she told me once, her eyes flashing with a fierce intelligence. "You read to understand how the pieces fit together. That's not a disability, sweetheart. That's a different kind of vision." I didn't realize it then, but she wasn't just babysitting me, she was training me. Just before her health began to decline, she handed me a small, heavy mahogany box with brass hinges. "Keep this safe," she whispered, her grip surprisingly strong. "Don't open it yet. When the time comes, when Robert shows you exactly who he is, you'll know what to do." I hid the box in the back of my closet, unaware that I was holding the dynamite that would eventually blow the entire Caldwell empire wide open. After graduating from a state university in 2022, never an Ivy, never good enough. I begged my father for a chance to contribute to the family legacy. Robert agreed, but on his terms. He hired me as an administrative assistant at Caldwell Properties. My salary was $42,000 a year. That same month, Vanessa joined as chief legal counsel. Her starting salary was $280,000 plus bonuses. My days were spent photocopying documents and booking conference rooms for executives who never learned my name. But while they ignored me, I watched. From the copy room, I sketched diagrams of the deals they discussed in the hallways, seeing the hidden risks they missed. I was waiting for a chance to prove myself. Instead, I got an eviction notice. It started with an email in April 2024. Subject position restructuring. HR jargon for "you're fired." That evening, staying late to organize files no one would read, I heard voices drifting through the thin wall connecting my cubicle to my father's corner office. "We can't have her here when Vanessa takes over," Robert said, his voice carrying that dismissive tone I knew too well. "It looks bad. The CEO's sister making coffee. People will ask questions. Why isn't she in leadership? Why is she the way she is?" My mother's voice followed, soft and lethal. "We've done everything we could, Robert, but we have to be realistic. She's a liability to the brand." I stood frozen, my hand pressed against the cold drywall. It wasn't just about the job. If I lost this $42,000 income, I'd be homeless in Queens within 2 months. But the real gut punch was the realization that they were actively planning to erase me to polish Vanessa's image. The execution happened publicly a month later on May 15th at the Plaza Hotel. 300 guests filled the grand ballroom to celebrate Vanessa's graduation. It was a sea of tuxedos and designer gowns. I stood at the entrance in a simple black dress from Zara, the best I could afford, tugging at the hem. My mother intercepted me before I could find a seat. "Chloe." Catherine scanned my outfit with a look of pained tolerance. "You couldn't find anything nicer." "This is what I have, Mom." "Well," she adjusted her Cartier bracelet, "try not to draw attention to yourself. You're at table 27 near the service entrance. And please let Vanessa have her moment. Don't embarrass us." Table 27 was practically in the kitchen. From behind a pillar, I watched the spectacle. At 8:30 p.m., the lights dimmed and my father took the stage, raising a champagne flute. "Tonight, I am not just celebrating an extraordinary young woman," Robert boomed, beaming at Vanessa, who looked radiant in emerald Valentino. "I am announcing the future of this family." He paused for effect. The room went silent. "Effective immediately upon my retirement, Vanessa Caldwell will inherit my entire estate. This includes the family residence at 740 Park Avenue, and most importantly, the position of CEO of Caldwell Properties." The room erupted in applause. Camera flashes blinded me. Vanessa dabbed at her eyes with practiced modesty. Not a single person looked at table 27. My cousin leaned over to me, shouting over the noise. "Chloe, right? So, what does that mean for you?" I opened my mouth, but no words came. What could I say that I had just been formally written out of existence, that the termination letter in my inbox was just the opening act? As my father hugged my sister on stage, the crushing weight of 20 years of neglect finally settled in. I wasn't just the slow one anymore. I was nothing. But as the applause died down, I saw a figure moving through the crowd toward my table. A silver-haired man in a gray suit, moving with a purpose that cut through the celebration. He wasn't looking at the stage. He was looking at me. And he was holding a thick, cream-colored envelope. The man stopped at my table, looking out of place among the glitter and champagne. He had the sharp, weary eyes of someone who spent his life reading fine print. "Ms. Caldwell." I straightened in my chair, wiping a stray tear before he could see it. "That's me. Can I help you?" "I'm James Miller," he said, pulling a heavy cream card from his pocket. "I was your grandmother Martha's personal attorney, not the company lawyer, her personal counsel." The name didn't register at first. "My grandmother passed away 3 years ago." "I know." James didn't sit. He stood like a sentry. "She left something for you, with very specific instructions. I was to deliver this document only on the day your father showed you exactly who he is." He glanced toward the stage where Robert and Vanessa were still basking in the adulation of 300 guests. I believe that condition has just been met. He placed a thick envelope on the tablecloth. It was sealed with red wax. What is this? The real will? James lowered his voice. The one your father doesn't know exists. My hands trembled as I took it. I couldn't breathe in that ballroom anymore. I grabbed the envelope and pushed through the service doors into the fluorescent-lit hallway near the kitchen, the applause muting to a dull roar behind me. My fingers fumbled with the wax seal. Inside were 3 pages of dense legal text. My dyslexia flared. The letters swam and danced across the page, but I forced them into focus, tracing the lines with my finger until I found the paragraph that mattered. To my granddaughter Chloe Ann Caldwell, I bequeath 51% of my shares in Caldwell Properties, along with all voting rights associated therewith. I gasped, the sound echoing off the cold tiles. 51%, controlling interest. I read on. This bequest is made with full knowledge of my son Robert's treatment of Chloe. She has been diminished not due to a lack of ability but a lack of support. Chloe is not slow. She was abandoned. I will not allow her father's prejudice to continue after my death. A sob caught in my throat. Grandma hadn't just watched. She had seen. She had seen every dinner table humiliation, every dismissed plea for help. But then I saw the bold text at the bottom. Condition of transfer. To activate this bequest, the beneficiary must formally request an emergency board meeting within 72 hours of receiving this document. Failure to act will render this will null and void. 72 hours, I whispered. James appeared in the doorway behind me. The deadline is strict, Chloe. Your grandmother knew you. She knew if she gave you unlimited time, you might convince yourself you weren't worthy. She gave you a deadline not to punish you, but to force you to move. He checked his watch. You have until 8:30 p.m. on May 18th. If you want to claim what is yours, we need to file a petition for an emergency board meeting. Your father will fight. Vanessa will fight. They will try to destroy you. Through the swinging doors, I could see my mother laughing with a senator's wife, completely unaware that her daughter was holding the power to dismantle their entire world. They've been destroying me for 28 years, I said, clutching the document to my chest. The fear was still there, but something else was rising beneath it, a cold, hard resolve. Let's call that meeting. That night, the contrast between my life and my family's couldn't have been starker. While Vanessa was likely popping another bottle of Dom Perignon at the plaza, I was sitting cross-legged on a second-hand mattress in my cramped Queens apartment, the streetlights casting orange bars across the floor. In my lap sat the mahogany box Grandma Martha had given me years ago. The brass hinges groaned as I lifted the lid. Inside it smelled of old paper and lavender, her scent. There was a letter on her personal stationery and jarringly modern against the velvet lining a sleek silver USB drive. I unfolded the letter first. My dearest Chloe, if you are reading this, then Robert has done exactly what I feared he would. I am sorry I couldn't protect you while I was alive, but I can arm you now. The USB contains something your father hopes I forgot. Use it wisely. Not for revenge, but for justice. My heart hammered against my ribs as I plugged the drive into my laptop. There was a single file, audio_board_meeting_March_2018.mp3. I pressed play. My father's voice filled the tiny room, cold and calculating. Mother is 81. She's losing her grip. We need to pass Resolution 2018-07 immediately. Reduce her voting rights from 51% to 10% on the grounds of diminished capacity. We take the company now before she ruins us. I froze. I remembered 2018. Grandma wasn't losing her grip. She was sharp as a tack. Robert had tried to stage a corporate coup against his own mother because he was hungry for power. The recording continued, the sound of a vote failing Grandma's voice, steady and steel-hard, shutting him down. He had tried to steal the company, and when he failed, he buried the evidence. Grandma hadn't just left me money. She had left me a weapon. The next morning at 9:01 a.m., I dialed a number I hadn't called in years. Betty Cooper speaking? Her voice was like sandpaper and whiskey, rough, tough, and iconic. Betty was one of the original board members, a woman who had helped Grandma build the first Caldwell Towers when Robert was still in diapers. "Ms. Cooper, this is Chloe Caldwell." There was a pause, then a low chuckle. "I've been wondering when you'd call. James Miller told me about the will." "Then you know I need a board meeting. I need 2 more signatures on the petition." "Honey, I can do better than that," Betty said, papers rustling in the background. "Your father has made a lot of enemies in that boardroom. He treats the directors like he treats you, like furniture. I'll have the petition filed by noon. Meeting set for May 18th, 10 a.m. "Thank you, Betty." "Don't thank me yet," she warned. "Prepare yourself, kid. They're going to come at you hard." She was right. The explosion happened at 4:00 p.m. that afternoon. I was at my desk at Caldwell Properties pretending to organize files when my phone vibrated. It was Vanessa. "What the hell did you do?" she hissed. "I don't know what you mean," I lied, keeping my voice steady. "Dad just got a notice from the board secretary. An emergency meeting requested by Betty Cooper, citing new ownership information." "Chloe, if this is some kind of tantrum because of the party—" "It's not a tantrum, Vanessa. It's business." I hung up before she could respond. Through the thin wall, I heard Robert slamming things in his office. I heard him shouting to his assistant. "It's a joke Betty is senile and Chloe— My God, Chloe can barely read a lunch menu, let alone a balance sheet. Ignore it. We'll go in there, crush this nonsense, and be done by lunch." I smiled at my reflection in the dark computer screen. For the first time in my life, being underestimated didn't feel like a curse. It felt like a tactical advantage. He didn't see me coming, and that was exactly how I was going to win. May 18th, 10 a.m. The elevator doors slid open on the 42nd floor, revealing a world of Italian marble and glass, a world I was never meant to inhabit. I stepped out wearing a gray blazer I'd bought at Goodwill for $12, clutching my portfolio like a shield. Vanessa intercepted me instantly. She looked immaculate in a navy power suit, her face twisting into a sneer. "Chloe, what are you doing here? Did you get lost on the way to the mailroom?" "I have business with the board," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "You don't even know what ROI stands for." She laughed, a sharp, cruel sound. "Go back downstairs before Dad sees you." "Too late," Robert Caldwell boomed, stepping out of the boardroom. He looked at me with pure disgust. "This is a restricted meeting, Chloe. We are discussing serious matters, not your little fantasies. Go back to your desk." "Actually," a gravelly voice cut through the air, "she stays." Betty Cooper appeared in the doorway, leaning on her cane with the authority of a general. "I invited her. She has standing." Robert's jaw tightened, but he wouldn't dare cross Betty. "Fine, let her speak. Let's see how long it takes before she humiliates herself." Inside, 12 board members sat around the polished walnut table. I took the seat at the far end, the kids' table. Robert stood up, buttoning his jacket. "Before we waste time, you should know that my daughter Chloe suffers from significant cognitive limitations. She reads at a 3rd grade level. This presentation is likely a misunderstanding." He was using my disability to discredit me before I'd even opened my mouth. "Thank you, Robert." I stood up. My hands were steady now. "I won't be discussing my reading level today. I'll be discussing this." I slid the 2019 will across the table to the chairman. "The last will and testament of Martha Caldwell, superseding all previous documents, bequeathing 51% of Caldwell properties to me." The room went dead silent. Robert turned a mottled shade of purple. "That is a forgery. My mother was senile. She was manipulated." "Manipulated?" I pulled out the USB drive. "Perhaps you'd like to explain this then." I pressed play. Robert's voice from 2018 filled the room, clear and cold, plotting to strip his own mother of her voting rights because she was in the way. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. The board members looked from the recording device to Robert, their expressions shifting from confusion to realization. They weren't just hearing a business strategy, they were hearing a betrayal. That, that was private. Robert stammered, the fear finally reaching his eyes. It's evidence, I said, looking him dead in the eye. Evidence that Grandma saw you coming. And now, as majority shareholder, I have one motion. Vanessa stood up, trembling. You can't run this company. You're a secretary. I don't want to run it, I said calmly. I want a vote of confidence. The board will decide right now if Robert Caldwell retains their trust as CEO. Hands went up, one by one. When the count was finished, Robert Caldwell had lost. The man who had erased me for 28 years had just been erased by his own arrogance. He looked at me, waiting for me to gloat, to scream, but I just sat there, quiet and visible. Finally, fully visible. I walked out of that boardroom not as a victim, but as the CEO of my own life. Grandma Martha left me a fortune, but her real gift was the truth my flaws were actually my superpowers. To anyone watching this, your worth is never defined by a degree, a paycheck, or someone else's inability to see your value. You don't need a secret inheritance to stand up for yourself, you just need the courage to say, enough. If this story inspired you to claim your own power, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories of justice and resilience. Drop a comment below with the words, I am worthy, if you are done letting others underestimate you. Thank you for watching, and remember, the best revenge isn't cruelty, it's simply thriving. See you in the next video.